Monday night there. Arise, a sirloin of beef. Arise, Earl of Cloves. Arise, Duke of Brittingham. Arise, Baron of Munchausen.
Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Yo, what up, brothers? It's the director. Chargers fans, you guys see this? You guys, this is a Victory Monday kind of grin, kind of smile right here. What a game on Sunday, man. The Chargers just saved their playoff push potential for the 2021 season. The Herbert versus Joe Burrow debate is finally resolved. We have finally crowned a king of the QB class of 2020. Man, right after the victory, I jumped on Photoshop. I was like, quick, what can I do? This absolutely was inspired. This is inspired work of art. This is a passion project. Congratulations to Justin Herbert in a fantastic outing. And my God, dudes, the Chargers on all levels were just firing from all cylinders, man. It really felt like the Chargers woke up that morning and said, hey, we're going to play to our full potential. We're not out of the playoffs yet. And honestly, with this win, there's a lot of repercussions to this. The Chargers, not just a playoff team anymore. Chargers may be looking at taking the AFC West if things go their way for the next, 4 or 5 weeks. So it should be an interesting one, man. Let's go relive the epicness of Week 13 in the NFL for the Los Angeles Chargers, as well as unpack some of the stuff that we saw in this game that does spell for a lot of success going into the future. All hail the king. All hail the king and Justin Herbert. Before we do get started, guys, I'm actually going to keep this picture up for this one. With 27 touchdowns on the season and 5 games left, how many passing touchdowns does Justin Herbert end the year with? You guys let me know in the comment section below. Well, of course, guys, we got to give you a reminder as to the awesome giveaway we got going on right now. You guys want a slice of history in your collection? We have a signed Justin Herbert jersey that I am giving away to one of my lucky subscribers. All you got to do to enter for this is hit up the link in the description. Follow the instructions there. Very, very simple. And again, these are thank yous to you guys for supporting my channel and hitting that sub and like button. Just remember, only subs can win. Good luck to everybody. But of course, we can't go through a video without giving an awesome shout out to some of our awesome members, the crew members here on this channel, of which I've got a signed Keenan Allen helmet, full-size helmet, up for grabs for one of you guys. All you got to do to enter for this is be a member of my crew, and that's it. And again, crew members, thank you for everything you do, man. Uses my boys. And with that, let's get into this one. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, bell notification helps me out a lot. We're on the road to 50K, boys. Let's get it done. With that, let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. The Chargers at Bengals. All hail the king post-game report. Now, you guys will know we normally go into the stat check with these videos, but as the Chargers are inching closer and closer to the end of the season as a playoff caliber team, we are adding this segment, the playoff outlook. So how do the Chargers look right now, as of right now, in the playoffs? With that victory over the Bengals, it pushes the Bengals down to the 7th seed and the Chargers up to the 6th seed. You guys remember I was talking about this in my preview video. The Chargers at the time before this video, I think somewhere around a 40% chance to make the playoffs. And honestly, it was really, really like horrible because we did lose to the Broncos and our playoff chance got cut in half. With this victory, the Chargers have been vaulted over a 60% chance at making the postseason. And what's even better is that the Chargers' remaining schedule, we got, what, the Giants and the Houston Texans and the division all mixed in there. A win versus the Giants can push us over 70%. And then after that, if we beat the Chiefs in Week 15, our chances to win the AFC West are very, very high. So honestly, guys, this was a huge, huge win for the Bolts. One that definitely vaulted them into very serious playoff contenders. And honestly, it's looking really good with everything that we saw in this game. And that's honestly what I do want to cover mostly in today's video. Now on to the normal stuff, a stat check. Let's see how the Chargers did versus the Bengals in this 40 31-22 victory. Justin Herbert versus Joe Burrow. This was the big storyline of the day, right? Everybody that I knew I was a Chargers fan here in my hometown was like, man, I'm ready for this game, man. Joe Burrow looks real good. Justin Herbert looks real good. We finally get to see them come on head to head. And honestly, it was an awesome battle to witness. Joe Burrow with that warrior spirit, with the banged up hand, which we just recently learned that Justin Herbert also had a banged up hand. So the warrior spirit in the quarterback room on both teams that day. 317 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception for Justin Herbert. He had on 4 sacks for 33 yards. Decent day. Very, very, very decent day for Justin Herbert. He went out there and absolutely lit the field on fire, dude. On the opposite side, Joe Burrow, 300 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, 6 sacks. That definitely shows which team came up to slow down the other quarterback. Of course, 300 yards and a touchdown, still pretty impressive for a quarterback with a banged up pinky. But at the same time, man, it's been resolved. Justin Herbert, the number 1 quarterback of the 2020 class. Very, very fun battle to witness right there. And honestly, it was cool to see Joe Burrow put up a fight too. He's honestly one of my favorite young quarterbacks in the league. Just because we just so happen to be playing the Bengals didn't mean that I wasn't kind of, impressed by what I saw with Joe Burrow. Next up, the rushing. Austin Eckler had a tough day. We'll go ahead and get into that here in just a minute. Joe Mixon limited to 54 yards. Again, we'll cover that in a second, but those are some of the stats to look at there. Receiving-wise, T. Higgins was kind of all over this field, right? We had a Jamar Chase here, too, 52 yards and 5 receptions. Good job on the Chargers limiting him, and I would say mainly good job to Michael Davis. There was almost one busted play where Chase could have probably taken it to the house, and that turned into an interception for Michael Davis. Other than that, very solid day for him. And then again, T. Higgins just had himself a monster day too. Mike Williams with 110, Guyton with 90, Eckler with 45. The Chargers very efficient, passing the ball around, and then Mike Williams coming up with some big plays. Take a look at this stat right here: 47, 44, and 12 on the longs for every one of those players. Definitely going to come into play here in just a minute. The fumbles, again, we'll get into that in just a second, and the defense. We'll get into this more in a second, but I want to just point out some numbers here for you Chargers fans. 10 total tackles for White, 10 total tackles for Drew Tranquil, 7 for Derwin James. You guys see the sack and tackle for loss column too. This Chargers defense was firing on all cylinders today. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of it, man. Let's get into the specifics of what we saw on Sunday, highlight some of the good things that the Chargers can build off of, can work on, and take into this final couple of weeks in the 2021 season, so hopefully into the postseason as well. First off, there's the Staley defense we've all been waiting for. Now, we all know, Brandon Staley came into the Chargers, head coaching position as one of the brighter-minded and defensive-minded head coaches in the NFL. And so far, Charger fans have seen some good stuff, but mainly the lack of run defense, sometimes the lack of pass defense, made us ask some questions, right? In this game, it really feels like things are beginning to click for Brandon Staley. He needed time. A first-time, head coach, a first-year head coach. He needed time to understand his players, what they're capable of, and how to utilize them. You know what that equated to in this week versus the Bengals, which were a really hot team coming into this game? 4 turnovers. 4. That's absolutely stellar, Brandon Staley, and this is something I covered in my game preview. If the Chargers can capitalize on turnover opportunities, we're going to win this game. And you know what? That's exactly what they did on Sunday. Shout-outs to Michael Davis on that interception, as well as Chris Harris Jr. to help lock that game up. Uchenna Nwosu with 2 sacks. He also forced the fumble. He looked incredible. And then Tavon Campbell with the scoop and score. Amazing. Capitalizing on these turnovers. Just a great day for the defense as a whole. Not to mention the sacks, man. Brandon Staley, if there's one thing that I've noticed over the last 3 or 4 weeks, is that he's really starting to understand where to line up his players. Because you take a look at his scheme at 3-4, a lot of people think base 3-4. They think that, this player's going to play at this position. That's just kind of what they do. Not really. 3-4 allows you a little bit of flexibility to move players around, and I do think that Brandon Staley has begun to understand where to put his players to find the most success. And I think in this week in particular, we saw the benefit of that with 6 sacks. Just like I said, 4 turnovers, 6 sacks. Oh my God. He really put Uchenna Nwosu, Jones, Rump, Tranquil, Derwin James in the right place at the right time. And again, his intelligence was put on full display in this week, particularly because of the injury to Joey Bosa, which we'll cover a little later in the video. But my God, hats off to Brandon Staley. This is exactly what I was hoping to see when the Chargers signed him. And honestly, the Chargers are beginning to reap the benefits of that. Next up, you can't talk about this win without the king himself, Justin Herbert, a modern-day superhuman. Herbert does win the Clash of the 2020 QB class. I think that's pretty much hand down and decided. But how did he do it this week, man? He dropped the H-bomb. You guys know what H-bomb is? It's a Herbert bomb. We got an emote for that in our live streams. Big plays to Mike Williams, to Jalen Guyton, spreading the ball around, keeping his, options open with his mobility, giving his receivers time to get open. My God, man. Justin Herbert was the complete package on Sunday, and this is honestly the week that we're hoping to see one of his better performances versus his draft class peer, and he really went out there and put on a show. You know how good he was, man? In the first half, he had like 170 yards, 3 touchdowns, and only 3 incompletions. That just spells a quarterback that has a very bright future in this league, and Justin Herbert definitely is going to take this team to a deep playoff push and potentially a Super Bowl here in the future. Excellent reads all day long, going through his progressions. We see sometimes some inconsistencies from Justin Herbert on that level, but honestly, again, he's a year 2 quarterback, and the more he begins to understand this and understand, the offensive coordinator understanding him as a player, we're going to see more success and consistency from him as we go down the road, and honestly, a very excellent game for him on that front. And I can't, I know some Chargers fans aren't ready to hear this, but my hat's off to Joe Lombardi too, man. I know a lot of Chargers fans are very critical of him, me as well at times. I hate the bubble screen. I think that's the big thing that I don't like about Joe Lombardi. Outside of that, though, it really feels like what Joe Lombardi's been trying to do finally clicked today. When it comes to execution, when it comes to, just the plays called, it feels like Joe Lombardi's starting to come into his own as well, and that does show signs of this coaching staff evolving. And I'll cover that more in a minute, but that's a big deal, man. Big deal. Next up, pressure for days. Now, again, I feel like a broken record, but I talked about this in the preview video. When you've got a struggling defensive backcourt like the Chargers do, right? We don't have Asante Samuel Jr. Tevon Campbell's really been struggling. It's been up and down for the Chargers defensive backs. When you have a struggling corp like that, what you want to do in order to mask that is apply as much pressure as you can, and that's exactly what the Chargers did. Yes, it equated to 6 sacks, which is huge, but the constant pressure on Joe Burrow was also huge because that forced a lot of bad decisions by Joe Burrow, and the defensive backs definitely benefited from that. I think the best example I can come up with is that interception by Chris Harris Jr. In comes, the pass rush, lots of pressure on the quarterback trying to flush him out, and then lo and behold, Joe Burrow tosses one up, and there's Chris Harris Jr. in the area. Bad decision forced by, honestly, pretty consistent pressure. That's what you want to see. Another story of this game when it comes to the pressure is Joey Bosa leaving early with a concussion. First off, before we get into any of that, I have to give, my props to the coaching staff with this decision. Joey Bosa left early with a concussion, and he was cleared to return at some point in the game. I think pretty early in the second half. Instead, the coaching staff decides, let him sit, man. We know the history with Joey Bosa and concussions. We know the kind of effects it's had on him and his life as a player, and honestly want to keep him around as long as possible. This was a huge game. This is a huge game to make that decision. This could have almost been looked at as a playoff game for the Chargers. We lose, we're probably out. We win, I think we're going places. And to make that decision in that game in particular shows a lot about the morals of the coaching staff and honestly Brandon Staley, and I could not be more proud of the team for that decision. Now, in his lieu, Uchenna Nwosu stepped in. Chris Rumph stepped in. These guys had monster games. Uchenna Nwosu, 2 sacks, 1 for a forced fumble. It was great to see Brandon Staley put him in a position where he can make a true effect on this game. And then Chris Rumph, the rookie, makes his debut and looks absolutely solid as well. Honestly, after seeing what Chris Rumph accomplished that game, I'd like to see more snaps in his direction. I would love to see him with more opportunities to make an impact on a game. Very, very good day for the pass rush of the Chargers, and honestly one that I think and I hope they learn from to take into the future. Because when we start playing Patrick Mahomes, Derek Carr, even a Teddy Bridgewater, I want to see that kind of pressure be very consistent to help us into the playoffs. And honestly, once we're into the playoffs, that's going to be especially important versus teams with really good quarterbacks. Okay? Next up, Eck giveth and Eck taketh away. Almost fumbled that phrase. Just like Eckler fumbled twice in that game, man. I know, dude, it almost allowed the Cincinnati Bengals to come back into this one. Chargers fans were sweating everywhere when a 24-point lead turned into a 2-point lead. I get it. But Eckler's also a big reason that we won that game. He put up over 100 scrimmage yards and a score. We got to give this man the benefit of a doubt. I think I point this out because in my live stream, we had, 800 people in there, something like that. I saw a lot of Chargers fans starting to, bench Eckler, turning their back a little bit. And that honestly hit me a little personally. Austin Eckler's been nothing but incredible this season, and I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt when he has a bad day like that. And even in those dark moments for him, after fumbling twice, he came back and did make a big impact for the team. So we got to give him the benefit of the doubt. He'll be okay. He's got a little bit of an injury problem right now. The Chargers might elect to sit him next week versus, honestly, the New York Giants, who the Chargers should, be confident in grabbing a win in that game. Give Austin Eckler all the benefit, man, because he's going to take us to the postseason, and once we're there, he's going to be a big reason if we win, okay? Next up, a big thing that we covered last week was personnel, right? And this week, I do have to give aces on personnel to Brandon Staley and the coaching staff. I saw a lot more Gaziano out there, who's been very, very good in this scheme, especially versus the run. Fayoko and the big boys. These guys have been heavily featured, in this game and in the Pittsburgh game. And last week versus the Denver Broncos, I was honestly a little concerned. I was like, why are we not going to the formation and with the players that helped us shut down Najee Harris? Why are we going back to Jerry Tillery all the time, right? It felt like in this game, the big boys were featured and to help shut down Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, 50 yards or something? Very similar to what we saw with Najee Harris versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think a lot of it has to do with the rotation of Gaziano, Fayoko, and the big boys. I think Christian Covington got in there sometimes too. And it didn't mean that we shut Jerry Tillery out of the game plan completely. I just think he was more intelligently utilized rather than forced into the lineup every single down. I think this is great, man. It tells me, again, that the coaching staff is starting to understand this team. And if we're going to stop the run, if we're going to be, not last in the NFL anymore when it comes to rushing yards allowed, which I do think the Chargers went to second to last, I think after this game, we got to understand which players to put in those situations. And honestly, Gaziano, Fayoko, those guys have been a godsend when it comes to the Chargers trying to patch things up. And you got to give aces to the personnel decisions in this game for Brandon Staley. Very, very nice to see that finally coming to fruition. And it's going to be something that the Chargers need to lean heavily on going into the future. We're going to have guys that are good at one thing or another. And if Brandon Staley knows where to put them and when to put them there, we're looking in a good way. Next up, the goofy refs. This will be short. I just had to highlight this out, man. This is a weird game. The refs coming out saying, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. They've messed up. I don't think I've ever seen that before. This is a weird and goofy game for the refs. Chris Harris Jr. catches an interception in the end zone for a touchback, and here comes the ref, touchdown. I was sitting here like, wait, what? Did my mind just play a trick on me so I didn't have to go through the pain of maybe a touchdown by the Bengals? No, it was weird. There were some weird calls out there, man, all day long. So if you guys were there, you remember it was weird. It was funny, and it was weird. Next up, respect to Joe Burrow, man. Again, as a fan of football, as a fan of the game in general, I like Joe Burrow. I'll be flat out in saying that. A lot of Chargers fans don't like him because, he's from the same draft class and we have to go up against him this week. I like him. And I'll just say, he's got the warrior spirit that Brandon Staley's always talking about. Played banged up. I'm looking forward to the rivalry, I guess, the connection to Justin Herbert going into the future, because I enjoy watching the Bengals because of Joe Burrow. And I'm just going to flat out say that, man. Some people will say, oh, director, you're pandering. Nah, man, I'm a fan of the game. I can say whatever I want. I like Joe Burrow, man. I think he's got a bright future in the NFL. Next up, the search for RB2. This is something I did have to bring up as well. We saw a lot of Justin Jackson on Sunday. I think he got 6 carries for honestly 15 yards. So nothing too spectacular for him. And I think what the Chargers are trying to do is poke and prod at their depth at running back. And I don't know if we have it on the roster right now. Justin Jackson at one point, I was so excited to see him every time he stepped on the field because he was just so good. He had that monster game versus Pittsburgh a few years back. And I was like, great, we're really set at running back too. But now I think it's more obvious that we need to sign somebody. I think Austin Eckler, as good as he is, again, I made the example last time I talked about it with Kellen Ballage. Kellen Ballage went in there and did a job, short yardage kind of situations, and he was very good at it. 6'3", big boy, right? It did not take away from Austin Eckler in the slightest. It just gave the Chargers an additional tool to go out there and utilize when they needed him. And right now, I think the Chargers are missing that tool, and I think they got to go out there and try and sign somebody. Maybe not immediately. Maybe it's something that they have to look at in the 2022 off season, but I think the Chargers are kind of starting to find answers when it comes to the depth at running back on this team right now. Next up. Well, who's number 44, man, in the chat? Who's number 40? That's Kaizeer White, baby. And Kaizeer White, dude, and Drue Tranquill, these guys have been absolute studs. In this game, they combined for 20 tackles, 2 tackle for loss, pass defended, and a sack. Wow. This is a contract year, keep in mind, too, for Kaizeer White. He has to stay. He's earned a contract with this team. He fits this scheme so well. He's so good in coverage. Him and Drue Tranquill are our guys. As long as they stay healthy, the Chargers have a really, really good, pair of middle linebackers for this team. But the reason I bring this up is because what do we do with Kenneth Murray, first-round pick for the Chargers? He's a very, very good player. I think his ceiling is super, super high. He just has been playing a lot this season because he does struggle in coverage, and we ask our linebackers to do that a lot. So what do we do here? I'm asking you, the chat, this, actually. I'm asking you guys in the chat to answer a question for me. Is it maybe time to consider trading Kenneth Murray? I almost hate to say it because I love Kenneth Murray so much. He's got everything I'm looking for in a linebacker: the size, the speed, the attitude, the physicality. I don't know where his place is on the team anymore. Because with the ascension of Drue Tranquill and Kaizeer White, it just feels like, it's obvious. It's obvious that we use those guys over Drue Tranquill. What do we do? So I'm asking you guys in the chat, what do you think we should do with Kenneth Murray? It's a tough one. I know it's a big bomb of a question to drop on you guys, but honestly, I'm asking because I'm just curious. So I'm gauging you guys. Like, what is the overall consensus from the Chargers fans at this point? And lastly, this was a huge one for me, man. Early aggression and big plays. I wanted to close the video on this because I think this is what we need going into the postseason. If we do make it into the playoffs, this is what we need. Now, what you'll see on the screen right here is a play. It was almost like a Hail Mary pass from Justin Herbert, and you will see Donald Parham not being able to come down with the ball. Regardless of that, even though I don't like Hail Mary situations, I like what that play signified. I like what it represents. The Chargers stayed aggressive throughout this entire game. They were very aggressive offensively and even defensively. You saw a lot of blitz packages and stuff like that throughout. That's why we had consistent pressure. We saw them very aggressive in the first quarter, in the first half, I should say. That's what led to this Chargers 24-0 lead. That's great. This is a playoff mentality. And even after that, maybe a little bit of bumbling and fumbling in the third quarter, but after that, man, the Chargers stepped on the gas. They kept their foot on the gas. They stepped on the throat of their opponent. That is the mentality that I want to see going forward. If we make it into the playoffs, and let's say we play somebody like, I don't know, the Patriots or the Baltimore Ravens, you think that we're going to make it very far by playing conservative? No. The execution and the mentality of aggression in the first and early in the game is very, very important to me as a fan. It might not be, to everybody, but I think that's where you take your big shots, right? Because what happens is you go up. You go up on your opponent. And that helps limit the Cincinnati Bengals in the run game. That's why we saw kind of a lackluster game for Joe Mixon. I don't know. What I'm seeing in specific games, maybe not last week versus the Denver Broncos, but this week and maybe a couple of games before that, I'm seeing that the coaches are showing signs of evolving. And this goes to Brandon Staley, who's been very good, constant pressure, all that kind of stuff, that his defense is starting to improve. To Joe Lombardi, understanding and better, getting to know his quarterback and giving him better plays to utilize his strengths and limit his weaknesses. The mentality of being aggressive and trying to go out there and use the tools that you have that honestly are very elite to grab that lead early. I love everything about it. Maybe I'm not getting it across clear enough, but I love the mentality. This, to me, is a playoff mentality. The aggression, the big plays, this is a playoff mentality. And I hope that's something the Chargers carry into the future. So finally, to close this video up, man, I feel like the Chargers have earned the right to make the playoffs with this game. This was a statement game. And with the remaining schedule of the Giants, the Chiefs, the Texans, the Broncos, and the Raiders, I think the Bolts have a legitimate chance to take the AFC West. I'm not even kidding. I think the Giants and the Texans, at this point, you got to think with how they're playing, those should be wins. If the Chargers can take care of business versus the Kansas City Chiefs, I think we can take the division. And if the coaching staff continues to evolve and understand their team, I think the Chargers will be a legitimate team to watch in 2022 as legitimate Super Bowl threats. This team is evolving. The coaching staff is evolving. And what's crazy is that we're this good right now, and we have like $80 million to spend in 2022. This team's going to get hot, man. This team's going to be scary going into 2022. We got the dough. We got all of the personnel. We got the quarterback. We got the coaches to go make a deep playoff push next season, even this season. And the Super Bowl in 2022. I do believe the Chargers should go to the Super Bowl in 2022. We're too good now. We have too much money. We got all the personnel. I think we got this, baby. I'm getting excited now. I'm getting excited. I got to go take a walk or something. I'm hyping myself up. Well, guys, let me know in the comments section again what you guys think the Justin Herbert stat line is going to look like as far as touchdowns, passing touchdowns for the rest of the season as a whole. And let me know your thoughts on this game. This is an awesome game, a statement game for the Chargers, and honestly one that spells a bright future for this team, even this season in 2021. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. If you did enjoy this Chargers content, we're on the way to 50,000 subs, guys, and I have you guys to thank for it. Thank you so much. With that, guys, I'm going to get out of here. This has been the Director. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up and stay frosty.